right, Deb, we're back again. Two
Back
podcasts
again.
today, which is weird for us. Usually we just knock out one in one day, but today we're really going for it. We're really, pushing the envelope of what we're capable of. So
Have we done have we done that before? I feel like we have, but I feel like it's been a while.
it's been a long time. We did one a long time ago when we first started. We did it early in the morning, and one of our guests didn't show up. But we don't need to
Yeah.
talk about that again. It's.
We don't Josh is gonna get all worked up. Let's just
I'm getting worked up, but it doesn't matter today because our guest tonight did show up. So that's all that matters. So today we have entrepreneur and youth motivational speaker Genesis Vaquero. How's it going?
Great. So excited and stoked to be here. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. I like the energy. And she was very
I love
energetic
it.
when we first talked before
Yeah.
recording too. So I'm like, this is going to be a good episode for sure.
That's
Yeah.
good. You need the energy with kids. You got to have it. They're going to fall asleep. So
Preach, preach over
I was
here.
just
you
saying,
understand, Deb. You understand.
I I have to entertain them every single day. Every day I got to do something. Otherwise they're just, there's no soul, like there's nothing. Otherwise they're just like, okay, can I go back on my phone? Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. So we need people like you. So thank you. So we're excited to get into it. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So the way we normally start this podcast off is we tell the audience how we're connected to new guests, and we're connected to you through social media, but specifically because one of our previous guests, Armani Easley, recommended you to us. And so you reached out to us and said, hey, I talked to Armani, and you were kind enough to kind of go through our little process that we have. And, everything I listened to, everything I read was just awesome. So it was kind of a no brainer for us. Like, yeah, we'll have Genesis on the podcast for sure. And like I told you, specifically for us, like the relationships, obviously being connectable, connections mean a lot to us. And as I told you, certain connections that we have in common are really meaningful for me. Specifically, my good friend Kevin Bracey, who I've known for I think over 10 years now.
Wow.
Anybody he is friends with, anybody he recommends, is very high on the list. And we just met Armani, but we also take Armani's suggestions pretty seriously. And so, like I said, we put you through the process, but you it came out clean for sure, and got some bonus points because of the guys that you're connected with. So that's pretty much how we're connected. And now I'm gonna stop talking and let you talk for a little bit. So tell us a little bit about you, your background, and who is Genesis.
Yeah. Let's see. Introductions. Those are always the trickiest. And as a speaker, I'd want it to be easy, but there's so much to say. To sum it up, I am 22 years old. I go to Sac State. I am still in college, which is a surprise to people. Ready to graduate soon in May. I've been a speaker for 5 years and a marketer. In terms of speaking, I focus on leadership development. And I really believe in leadership and teaching that to the youth of today, because I really believe that if we give them tools and resources on mindset, networking, and personal and professional development, that we can create leaders that can really help change our world. And what I think the key word is give our world hope. I think we need more hope. And so I'm dedicated towards helping high school and college kids because I believe in them. And I really think that they do not know their full potential. And as adults, we can remind them of their full potential. And being a similar age, I think it's easier for me to connect to their problems and what they deal with on an everyday basis and how I can help them find solutions so they have a better and easier life.
That's
That's
awesome.
awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just want to say this.
I have so many questions already.
I do too, but I also have one statement. I feel like, Deb, we need to stop booking people that are so much younger than us because it makes me feel so old. And she's like way more accomplished than I am too. You know what I mean?
I'm probably not.
I don't know.
Well, you have such a good energy, and like obviously you're a motivational speaker for a reason. So and sometimes that can shock people. I'm sure when you're like, I'm 22, it's like, what?
Yes.
It's like Josh, you know who she reminds me of? Genesis, you remind me of my friend Natalie. She's one of my she's no longer a boxing instructor, but I have another podcast. We won't talk about it because I haven't recorded it in a while, but I had called Not Hire a Judge, and she was on that one. Same thing. I had her in my apartment. We started recording. I didn't know she was 22. I'm like, Natalie, I thought you were like 29. Like, what? But she's very outgoing, like you remind me of her, very outgoing, very mature, very, yeah. So yeah, as soon as she said 22, I was like, what? So yeah. Anyway, we're trying to compliment you. I don't know if it's working, but that's what.
Well, yeah, that is a compliment for sure. And again, it's just
It's
we're just
great.
old. That's just the bottom line, Deb. We're just old. But
We
that's
just don't see
interesting
it
though.
these days.
Oh,
You don't see this, sorry, you don't see this energy these days, especially when like
right.
you talk to kids. It's like I'm like so worried for them when they get out of, they're just very the leader. Yeah. So I have so many questions regarding that for you. So I'll ask that in a second, but sorry, Josh, go ahead.
No, it's okay. No, I have a ton of questions too. And I think one of them, again, kind of sticking with your age, it is interesting because, being young as a young speaker or a young coach, anytime you have that position of, I guess, authority as a young person who's speaking to young people, one of the challenges is, are you too close in age? Like, are you too relatable where they don't respect you? Or are you so old that you can't relate anymore? Right. And it's almost like, I'm wondering if, from your perspective, the fact that people see you and think of you as older, but in reality, your age is actually younger, does that balance benefit you as a speaker who's trying to connect with young people?
That's a great question. And by the way, thank you for the compliments. I appreciate it. They're good affirmations. Positivity is key to relationships. So love that. Love that. In terms of that balance, I do think it does give me a leverage. Because when I come to schools and I come to organizations, I say, I wasn't too far ahead, whereas 5 years ago, I was struggling with the same thing these kids are struggling with before me. I struggled with mental health, depression. I had a fixed mindset. I was very shy and I didn't feel confident. Just in high school, looking back, especially, that's where I was very fixed minded. And that really put me in this box, is how I describe it, this caged box. And it didn't allow me to reach my full potential. And it wasn't until I did all these things that helped me that I teach students, and I feel that they still respect me, which I appreciate because respect is earned, it's not given. And that came through being vulnerable with them, just saying, I'm an open book. I'm not on a pedestal. Please do not put me on a pedestal. I am around your age and I can relate through the difficulties you're going through, because mental health is so big. And I've experienced this all my life growing up. I would say right up until high school, and then transformation really peaked. And I think that vulnerability and that experience that is similar to their age helps them be more understanding where I'm coming from and allows them to listen more, which I think is really great.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can totally see that with, you being, close to their age. I feel like, as Josh and I are in our mid-30s, so I feel like they'd be like, what do you know about what I'm going through, because there's such a gap. So, and then that's not to say that anyone can reach anybody, for sure. There's motivational speakers of all ages, but I think that's great that that about yourself, in terms of like you're closer to their age. And but the respect thing is still there, because I think that they obviously look up to you, but to have you go through something similar that they are going through right now, so soon, I guess, is beneficial and great, because you can relate to them. And like you said, relationships and making connection is key. So that's awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. I apologize if you mentioned this already, but you mentioned that you're more introverted. You were a lot, more reserved. Why did you want to become a public speaker? Because I mean, that's like, you hear it all the time. Anybody who's introverted, and even for some people who are extroverted, public speaking is the number one fear. You hear it all the time, right? So at what point did you say, hey, like, I want to be a public speaker. I want to be a motivational speaker. I want to stand in front of hundreds and hundreds of people and have them all look at me while I'm doing my thing. Like, at what point did that kick in, and why did you want to do it?
I would say the why that still motivates me today is really my story. So at the age of 5 years old, I had to face adversity like that. Unfortunately, when I was 5 years old, my father passed away of terminal cancer.
Hmm.
And I grew up at the age of 5 already feeling depressed. I already at a young age had suicidal thoughts. And I was in this dark tunnel, is how I describe it. I didn't see the light, and I just thought it's another day, I'm getting through. And, when I grew up, I don't really want to think about my goals or dreams or aspirations because I feel hopeless, right? And I felt really lost. And growing up, I was bullied severely, and it really affected my depression, the way I viewed myself, the way I loved myself as an individual. And being able to go through that adversity and turn it into a strength gave me hope. Yet again, the key word. And I really believe that there is hope for those students. And I try to give them that hope because I know what it feels like being on the other side of the wall and not knowing what lies on the other side, but being able to still believe that there is a world that is there for you and that you are important and it's not a coincidence you're in this world. You have gifts you can use and bring to this world to better it. And that's what I try to give to these students through resources and tools. And that's my why. That's my motivation, is knowing I was on the other side of the wall and I saw that adversity and I thought that defined who I was. That defined me as an individual, that defined my success, and that defined what I would do. But what I like to do is teach these kids what they're capable of doing when they push down adversity and use it as a strength. In terms of when I knew I wanted to do public speaking, I've always had this passion when it came to viewing TEDx talks or seeing speakers at my school, such as Kevin Bracey, which was one of the most pivotal speakers in my life, that really planted that seed as, yes, you face this difficulty, but yes, you have potential in doing what you want to do. Just go for your calling. And seeing someone like him so successful do what he did just stemmed this fire in my belly, this passion. And I went after his assembly and asked him, wow, like this is a career. I never knew public speaking was a career until I talked to Kevin Bracey, and he said, yes. And you get paid for this? Yes, of course. Here's my number. Have any questions, call me. Immediately got on the phone, asked him more questions. He told me what steps to do, and I did them. I joined Toastmasters. I got mentors. I surrounded myself with people like-minded, and that really helped me in my speaking. Another pivotal moment was my graduation speech I gave in high school in 2018, standing in front of a sea of 4,000 heads, but yet feeling like I'm having a conversation with you both right now, is how peaceful it felt, is when I knew this is it.
That's awesome. That's
That
awesome.
is cool. That's so cool that you were able to talk to Kevin and for him to give you, the tools and tips that you need, and for you to just actually take that step. It's one thing to go up and like ask about it, and then he gives you your card, and another thing for you to actually like follow up on it. And that just shows that was like something like you're meant to do, like, the fire under your belly. And it's good that, like you're like, I just loved listening to TED Talks and stuff. And all this information is good for, anyone you're speaking to know, because you're going to be the same. You're going to be someone's Kevin. Someone's going to come up to you and be like, I can do this for a living, So I think that's great to share all of that too. Because some people don't know what they're capable of until they try something. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I feel like it's cool. Again, I can say this forever. I could do a whole episode talking about how much I love Kevin and the impact he's had on my life. But one of the things I've always respected about him, and I've seen this, I saw this 10 years ago, and he still does it now, and he did it for you, is he always takes the time to have those conversations with someone who is an aspiring speaker who wants to pursue that same path. And you've seen a lot in whatever career path or whatever thing someone's doing. Sometimes they don't feel the need to take that time. Like, I'm kind of doing my thing. Cool. You want to be a speaker? Good luck. And they just kind of move on. But he's always really good about taking the time and saying, hey, if you're really serious, here's my information. I can walk you through this. And so I think it's another good thing for people to hear too. Like, if you're in a position where you are successful at what you're doing, don't forget like where you started. Don't forget that at one point you were at the very beginning, just trying to find your way. And so I think you sharing that is, like Deb said, really cool for someone like you who's like, hey, I'm going to be that for someone one day. And then for everybody else who's doing their thing right now, it's an important thing to remember. Like, people are looking at you. And so take the time to help someone out if you can.
Yeah. Genesis. So I've been wanting to ask you this question. So what are your thoughts on, since the pandemic, with schools shutting down, because I've seen a huge difference in the way my students are, in the way the youth is today and teenagers, and because so the pandemic happened, it was online learning for half a year. No, I'm sorry, excuse me, for almost a full year basically. And then we went back in person. So it was like a year and a half of kids being like not in school, not having face-to-face conversations, that sort of thing. So when we came back, Josh knows, and I've vented on several episodes probably, it was awful. Like, just come like from a teacher's, and I'm sure, and from students' perspectives too. So when we came back, full-time in school, I saw a huge difference between the juniors and seniors, and then the freshmen and sophomores. And I can only speak to that because that's the age group I work with. But the freshmen and sophomores were very disconnected, just didn't even know how to like socialize, like everything. They just wanted to fight each other, legit, just because they didn't know how to handle conflict. It was almost like just letting kids just, hold them in and then just out in the wild, go figure it out. And then the older kids, the juniors and seniors, were so checked out. They were just like, we're over this. We just want out. So there was no leadership, none. And it's taken this long. So what, 2 years, where finally I see a sense of like school spirit at my school. Like, it's starting to come back and it's starting to build up again. It's taken a long time, but so I guess my question is, what have you seen something similar, or have you have spoken with students, Sac State or wherever? Like, do you see something like that as well? Or what can you speak on that? Or what can you say to that, I guess?
Definitely connect with a lot of what you just said, especially social skills. That stood out to me. I think that is one of the more problematic things that has happened from COVID, even in general and age range. But yes, with the youth, I think it did hit them very hard, in terms of being able to know how to connect anymore, how to build an authentic relationship. And I think COVID, in a way, stemmed this fear of connection and is having more youth today put up walls, because they fear having that intimate connection that was taken away from them during the time period. So it's almost like we're going back in time, and everybody is learning how to get back to where they were before COVID. And for the youth, that's really difficult if they don't have the right resources and tools. And like you said, leadership development, that was not common during COVID at all. I mean, I would be surprised if I heard a speaker say, I did leadership development at like 10 schools. I'd be like, wow, So that's something that was very prominent, and I think still lies in our youth, is those social skills. And I feel like that affected their confidence and it affected their motivation. I think those are two things. And a lot of the things I hear on the more negative side with youth, because there's a lot of positive aspects, but the negative side is them saying that they feel hopeless. And that really pains me and hurts me to hear a kid say that they don't have hope for our future,
Yeah, absolutely. That's pretty much what I've been seeing, and it's gotten better. But yeah, that's what you just said, like something like connection, and all of a sudden that was taken away from them. And even with like some of the athletes I knew on campus, like they were devastated. Like, they relied so heavily. Josh and I have talked about this. They relied, when it was happening, I think we had episodes about it, Josh, when we were starting because of the pandemic. That athletes relied so heavily, and that's just one example group, They relied heavily on like their teammates, their coach, like that was the only positive thing in their life. And same thing with all, you know, every kid, school, after school activities was like something they deeply relied on to make connections and stuff. And then that being taken away. So yeah, I feel like it was like a backpedal. Like then they got used to like being in a, you know, blanketing themselves from that. So now it's like, okay, now I got to make connections again. So like, I'll even try to have my kids while I'm taking roll, I tell them like, okay, turn to someone next to you and here's your question of the day, go. Maybe half my class actually does it. The rest just kind of sit there. Like even my most social class, like not all of them will talk. So they're still like getting there, you know, they're just warming up. I feel like it'll take some time, but I was just wondering your thoughts on that. And if you've like had, you know, if you've had talks about that, or I'm sure you've had thoughts about it too, because when that happened, you were pretty young still when that happened, since it was, you know, what, 3 years ago. So did it affect, how did it affect you? I guess professionally, personally, scholastically, I guess, if that's a word, if I could say that.
I would say in a good way, I'm glad and thankful. And I know it wasn't for a lot of kids my age, but in a positive way. And the only reason I say it affected me in a positive way, not overall, I'm going to say obviously the negative sides were not socializing with people you loved, being able not to have a normal life. But I'm saying in a positive way because I feel like I trained for that mentally, if that makes sense. I feel like when I knew how to turn my fixed mindset to a growth mindset, this was like preparation. This was like all these years you've trained how to fix your mind and control it. This is an environment where you're isolated and you have to practice the tools and resources you used on yourself. And especially if I want to be able to give those to students, I'm not going to preach what I don't do. So I use that time of isolation to actually prepare myself more mentally than I already had. And I was really diving into knowledge, you know, podcasts, books, anywhere I could gain sources of information, networking. I did a lot of online LinkedIn networking. Week after week, I would meet with individuals and just say, how do you do what you do? And that's what I tell students to do when they network, is just be straightforward and ask these professionals how they did it, because a lot of the time people want to help you more, right? Than say, no, I'm too busy for that. Like Kevin Bracey, there are good people, there are good professionals that will help you. And so I leveraged that time to really grow stronger mentally, network, build my online platform more on LinkedIn, especially get to know more people, and try to use that to strengthen me. Because I felt like this was a challenge in my life where it said, Genesis, if you can be strong enough now mentally, how are you going to help students be stronger mentally in the future when there's a challenge in our world that you can't control? So I viewed it as a challenge. I'm going to take it on, give it all I can. And thankfully, it helped me grow in ways that I can never describe how thankful I am for.
That's great.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. I feel like people we talk to, especially during that time when we were interviewing people in the midst of, right in the middle of the pandemic, that was one of the common things. I feel like a lot of people would say pivot. You know, I pivoted here, I was doing this, that got shut down. So I pivoted in a different direction. And I think ultimately a lot of them said something very similar, where it's like, okay, I came out on the other side stronger, or I developed new skills, or I learned this about myself that I didn't realize. So it just seems to be a common theme for everybody who is successful and has that same mindset. Like that's cool that you had that mindset, because especially like Deb said, at that point of your young speaking career, like that could have been just devastating. It's like, man, I was just getting into this and now all of my opportunities are gone, or now all of my opportunities are on Zoom, which, you know, anybody who's done any kind of public speaking knows it is not easy to talk to someone. I mean, this is different, but even like we had to get used to this too, Deb. Like, these conversations were weird because it's not the same. You don't get to the same real-time interaction, and, you know, you say a joke and they're not laughing. Like, was it a bad joke, or is there like a delay? I don't know. So there's so many things. And so the fact that you were able to pivot and move it into a direction that was still beneficial to you, and you used that is awesome. I think it's just a great lesson for any any person who's listening to this, especially a person who's connected to a young person, that's a great piece of advice. I did want to ask though, on my notes, I was looking at your website, and I did notice, on that first page, you list some of the areas that are places that you've spoken. One of the places you spoke was Casa Roble High School, which is actually where I graduated from. So I'm just curious,
cool.
what's the connection there?
Okay, awesome. I didn't know that. So
Oh
you're an
yeah,
alumni too.
Oh,
yeah.
oh,
Awesome.
did you graduate from there, Genesis?
I graduated from Casa Roble.
Oh, that's awesome. Look at that.
That's
I
where I
had no
met
clue.
Kevin Bracey, and then Horner, the football coach. He
Oh,
was,
we love Coach Horner.
Yeah.
and I know he did a character combined podcast episode, actually
Yep.
a few. So great,
Yep.
more connections.
Hey, look at that. That's why we do the podcast. That's why we do it, Deb. For all these
Exactly.
connections.
I know. We would have never met Genesis.
I
Well,
know.
I
See,
know. I
very
love
cool.
it.
Okay,
So
so I'm guessing, did you see Kevin at an assembly, or were you doing the Reach One Alliance? What did, like, where did he speak, or what was he doing when you saw him speak for the first time?
he did an assembly.
Got
I
it.
don't remember the date, if I'm going to be honest. It seems
Yeah.
like so far long ago. It's
Yeah.
funny, but I just remember he did an assembly. Then we got connected. He mentored me and guided me in a way that helped me in speaking that I'm so thankful for, even giving me the tools and resources he was given and saying, Genesis, go ahead and do this if you're serious about it. And trust me, you're not going to regret it. And I did that. He actually is the one that introduced me into the speaking world, like I said, as my first person that guided me into it. He was so kind to say, I have friendship day at Casa Roble, your high school. And at the time, I was probably a junior, maybe a senior, I would say. And he said, you know what? How about you tag along and you come speak with me? And I said, okay, I'll give it a shot. And he said, because this is how you're going to know if you love it or not. So I met up with him at my high school for Friendship Day, and they were doing it around mental health. So it all stemmed into mindset, being mindfully aware, empathy, and compassion. And so Kevin said, okay, I'm getting you plugged into people so you know what topics you need to speak. I'll do half, you do the other half. So I watched him. Keep in mind, I did not know how to prepare for a speech.
Uh,
Didn't have
yeah.
a script written out. I just said, I'm going to try my best to do improv. Because maybe if I do improv, maybe it will be a good challenge. So let's see. So, I got up there, did my thing after Kevin did his, of course. And I was like, wow. Like just seeing Kevin, like seeing the best of the best do it was already enough to stem that motivation in me. And I just felt so at ease speaking. I knew my story still had to be refined. I knew I had to be refined as a speaker, but I just gave it my all, walked away, and Kevin said, you have it. And I remember him looking at me when he said that. And I cannot explain how much hope that put in me to where today as a speaker, I remember those words and I remember that look where I'm like, keep going, Genesis.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Um,
So where
yeah.
did you, is that the only time you've spoken at Casa, or did you speak other times as well?
That's the only time besides my
That's
graduation
awesome.
with Friendship Day. Yeah.
Very cool. That's awesome. That's wild. Same, and I'm assuming your graduation was on the football field?
Yes, football field. It
It's
was awesome.
yeah, that's crazy. Same place I graduated. Pretty wild.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Oh, cool.
I had another thought about that too. I
Yeah.
can't remember. It was about
That's-
Cass. Oh, Horner. Yeah, we love Coach Horner. And let me ask you this. Because he never says it, but I can just tell. I can tell. He's basically the mayor of Casa, right?
Yes, he is.
Okay. Yeah, we knew it. We all knew it. It's just he won't say it himself. But like every time he comes on, it's like the first time I met him, I didn't have him as a student, but I met him doing character combine stuff, and he starts introducing me to everybody. I'm like, who is this? Like, I always knew he had a good reputation, but he's literally, I'm not gonna say he runs the school, but it does feel like that. So I just wanted to confirm with someone that was there more recently.
He definitely is the mayor. He's so connected there. I mean, the first day of freshman year, I was there with my mom, and we're trying to like get plugged in, guided, where are my classes, and just know everything. And my mom asked the student, of course, you know how moms are, they embarrass you. It's okay. We still love them every day.
Yeah.
She goes, sweetie, do you know a good teacher that can help guide us? And he's like, look for the guy with the crazy hair. So
Not bad.
I just point him out and I'm like, I think that's him. And then we wave at him. He's like, hi, you know, his personality. He's just like a burst of energy. And we're just like taken back, trying to hold on for this ride that's about to happen. Energetic, full blown tour.
It's funny.
But it was amazing. It was amazing. He's a cool guy.
Yeah, we love Coach Horner. I feel like Deb, the first time we had him on the podcast, he's like, I don't know, I've never done this before. I'm not sure how it's going to go. And they're like,
Oh,
okay,
you're fine.
you're going to
Yeah.
be fine. It's like people are going to want you to run this podcast instead of us. So calm down. Yeah.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, he's a good dude for sure. They've got to get you. I've spoken twice at the Renaissance breakfast,
Okay.
which was pretty cool. It's kind of crazy. It's only 10 minutes. That 10 minutes goes by quick, but we got to get you in there to do the Renaissance breakfast pretty soon.
Sounds good.
Yeah. I don't have any pool, but I think you should. I'm just wishing that for you. So anyways, I could talk about the cast of dates forever, but I'm not going to. We got more stuff to ask you.
Yeah. What are your, do you have like, I mean, okay. So I guess like my question is, how do you prepare for these speeches? Like, does it depend on the topic, or do you gear towards a certain topic, or is a topic requested, and I have so many questions, sorry. And what is your favorite thing to, I guess, talk about, like preach on?
Sorry, before you answer that, I just wanted to piggyback off that too. Like, do you have like a signature talk too? Like, is that, so I feel like a lot of speakers have like that one talk that they're known for. Do you have something like that? Sorry, I just wanted to add on to Deb's question.
You're good. You're good. I would say mindset. That's the biggest topic I focus on. That's like my signature speech, I would say, on what I preach and I want to instill in students, because that's really what helped me overcome adversity and become who I am today. And I can't speak volumes on if I didn't know how to create an open mindset and push away from a fixed mindset, I would be nowhere near I am today. And I humbly say that, I'm nowhere near the greats of the greats, like Kevin Bracey, right? Who was mentored by Les Brown, which is crazy. So cool to know. And I definitely have a long ways to go. But in terms of being that isolated, depressed, hopeless child, turning into this motivated, inspiring in a way that I want to inspire myself when I look in the mirror, right? I try my best to challenge myself. I'm my own competitor, end of the day. And being who I am today stemmed from that mindset. I cannot speak volumes on what mindset did for me. Thankfully, I had a mother from the age of 5, when my father passed away. She started teaching me how to make vision boards and affirmations on a daily basis. She started giving me personal development books when I was like 10. So I tell you, my mom, she's incredible. And having someone like that support system, and having tools and resources on how to have that mindset, whew, we have so much hope for the future if we instill that in the kids today.
Yeah, that's great. It's great. And I mean, that's awesome. And you know this probably, I feel like when I look at these kids and they don't have that at home, I'm like, ugh, and I have so many kids. So I'm just like, I don't even have time to you know what I'm saying? Like individually help them. So I think it's great that you are a tool in our youth today to bring that positive information to them. I'd like to say that teachers are motivational speakers, but we don't have time. We honestly are just like, we're just trying to get through our lesson. I'm trying to make sure that this kid's not throwing something and that this kid's So sometimes it looks like we're doing the opposite of motivational speaking, because we can get so stressed out sometimes. So you are the key. So thank you.
So are teachers, Deb. So I want to highlight that. Don't downplay that. Being a teacher is incredibly hard. And I honestly, I could maybe do it, but thinking about it, I get stressed. So kudos to you. Could not do it unless maybe $1 million, maybe. But honestly, it takes so much patience and dedication, and it's a lot.
Well, Well, this is what we do, right? We do, what we're passionate about, and for you to know that you're passionate about, motivational speaking, and that you have a thing, like like Josh said, like, what is your go-to, like the mindset thing? That's huge. And that's a great theme, because everything does start with how you think about things. My Josh knows this, and my theme is evolve. Like, you're constantly learning and evolving, but the mindset, part of that, like, is people just don't think of it. Like, if you can really dig deep inside your mind and try to change your way of thinking, then it could really change your life. I know, that was my sucky motivational, like,
No, I love it.
quote, I guess. That's just change the way you're thinking, okay? There you go. That's my motivational speech. But no, that's
great.
great. Yeah, that's great that you have a theme like that. I think it's awesome just to teach the youth today about how to change your mindset. That's great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. I know sometimes the problem with this podcast, because the theme is connection, it's very broad, but like one of the issues, I don't know if you ever do this, Deb, but like I'm already thinking about people that we should connect Genesis with, because of all the things you just said, but like the guys over at the Mindset podcast, and
Yep.
which they'll be on our show pretty soon. Those would be great guys for you to connect with, because they're all about mindset, and they're out in Florida. A bunch of other people we can talk about later, but one of the things I'm I follow a decent amount of speakers, obviously following Kevin for a while, seeing what he does, Dwight Taylor, Armani, a bunch of these people that are out in the community doing awesome things. One of the things that I always find fascinating and I always love seeing is anytime they do an event or they have a speaking engagement, it's awesome seeing the videos of how it went and the clips and all that stuff. But the part I really enjoy is when, after it's all said and done, the DMs they get, the messages they get, the contact that they receive from the people who are in the audience. So what is that like for you? And then how meaningful is that when you receive a DM from some kid that was in the audience that you were speaking to, saying, hey, this really impacted my life. Thank you so much. Like, what is that feeling like? It's got to be awesome, I imagine.
It is pretty awesome. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know how to describe it. Maybe like when you're a kid and you had a sugar rush.
Okay. That's pretty good.
Maybe something similar to that, but honestly, there's no words. I just feel like when you get something like that, it's makes you humbled, number one, because you're like, wow, like the fact that you believe I impacted your life in some way, that's great. I love that. It's just an affirmation, really, to keep going and doing what I do. Because a lot of the times when you have moments that maybe aren't, all butterflies and rainbows, and I would call them the more fixed mindset moments, right? We're humans. And I even admit to the youth, I still have moments where I have fixed mindset moments, but it's about not dwelling in it, right? It's about changing it immediately and knowing that you're aware of it. But in moments when I do have those seconds or those minutes of a fixed mindset, I think back on, well, that kid thought I took something away from it and I did something to better their life. That is so much drive and motivation in me to not allow that mindset, especially imposter syndrome, to not kick in and say, you know what, you are young, you have a lot to learn, but they took something away from that. If we keep pushing yourself, Genesis, and transforming your mind and working on yourself every day, what can we give back even more to other kids in the future? And that motivates me.
Genesis, I love that you said imposter syndrome. It's not spoken about enough. Could you explain to our listeners what that is?
Yeah, so imposter syndrome is essentially something that you put in your mind, a narrative, saying essentially that you are essentially not good enough, or that you are not prepared enough, or you don't have the certain achievements or criteria, or whatever it is, right? You don't have that certain blank to be able to do what you do. And in a sense, it's that fear that you're not good enough. End of the day, that's what it really is. And then saying, should I be doing what I do if I don't have that certificate yet? Or I didn't do that coaching course? Or I don't have that fancy title? And what it really is that fixed thought that comes into your mind and tries to distort the image you have about yourself and really push and degrade your image down and make you feel not good enough.
Yeah. It's essentially the question, if you were to ask yourself, who do you think you are trying to do this? Right? I've had that thought many times.
I was gonna say
But
we should have that thought more on this podcast, but we don't. We're like, hey, we're okay at this.
who do we think we are? No, but I'll catch myself thinking that, and I'll have to be like, yeah. And so I've studied that term just a couple of times. I'm not an expert on it, but I'm glad you said that, just because some people are unaware that they're doing it. And it's huge. It's huge that could change your whole trajectory of what you do with your life and how you impact people, is to, like, if for imposter syndrome to kick in and then you just backpedal away from it, then it's like, no, you're going wrong direction, keep going, that you're doing this for a reason. So I think it's just a good term for people to know. So thanks for explaining that.
Of course.
One of the things I'm curious about too is, obviously, you are a youth speaker, and I think any speaker, no matter who they're speaking to, no matter what their age range or audience is, creativity is a big part of what you guys do, because you have to craft your message in such a way that's going to captivate your audience, not just captivate them in the moment, but you also want them to remember what you said as they walk out the doors. But because you are a youth speaker, I personally feel like there's an extra level of pressure that comes with the creativity, because I mean, you have social media you have to deal with. It's as much as it would be nice to just be able to speak and let that be enough, you have to know social media, especially with the youth. You have to understand what they're into. You have to understand how to grab their attention, not just on the stage, but also online too. So I guess my first question is, do you enjoy social media, especially because it's part of what you have to do? And how have you found creative ways to connect with young people through social media?
Social media, excuse me, I think is tricky to say if I enjoy it fully. I feel like there's two sides of me that has two different opinions. One opinion is I like it if we can use it in a beneficial way, right? Use it in a positive way. That's what I try to promote when I do talk about social media with students is, anti-bullying, making sure we're sending positive messages, not putting other people down, not comparing, making sure that we don't allow imposter syndrome to come into our life, in our mind, when we are comparing on social media. And we're humans, so it happens. That's why a detox on social media is extremely important. I would say the negative effects of it are very scary. Mental health, right? That is a target of social media. It gets into your brain, into your mindset, and it tries to distort it and distort your positive thoughts into negative thoughts. And so a part of me loves it for using it for good, but a part of me doesn't, because I think that it can take away from human connection, especially when I am talking to people, networking. I'm at a coffee shop or at a meeting. I have a rule where I have to put my phone away where I can't see it or put it face down. Because I think there's something about social media being so addictive to where if you even have your phone faced up, you're waiting for it to buzz. You're waiting for a notification. You're waiting for the light to turn on. And I think it is really taking us back on having real relationships. In terms of using it to connect with youth, I love it. I think it's an awesome way to have students have me as a person if they ever need to ask questions to or need tools and resources. And I tell them, even though I came to speak to you, this time, know that the door is open. Know that if you need me to introduce you to connections or, hop on a call and mentor you, I am open to doing that in my free time, because that means that what I'm doing is working, right? Cultivating that relationship and keeping the connection with students through social media is so, so important to me.
Yeah.
No, it
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, well, and it's great that your motivational speaking is more than just motivational speaking. You're not just preparing your notes and going and talking in front of people, and then that's that. You're you're open to conversations, you're open to mentorship, you're open to like, no, let's make a connection. You know, how can I help you? And how can I help you? You're kind of like you are essentially a teacher, right? Like that's how I see it that way. Yeah. And kind of like a counselor too. Like you are there to motivate, but you're not just speaking at at people, which, people like Kevin Bracey, we know a lot of people like, Dwight Taylor and just, all those people, like they are open to, talking with people and letting people in. And that's what you're doing too. And I think that's great because that just shows your true nature and your true character. And then people will see that. And then, you just affect way more people. And in turn, and I know this is not the number one motivation for you, but in turn you do become more successful because people see that you're the real deal and that this is what you're truly passionate about. And they see that like, oh, maybe I could do this too. Again, you could be someone's Kevin. Someone,
Yeah.
we won't even call that. We're going to say you're going to be someone's Genesis because you are going to be your own entity. So I'll stop saying that.
I feel like Kevin's going to hear that. He's like, he would have said the exact same thing you just said.
You're right. Yeah. So there you go.
I have to ask, this is just kind of silly, but obviously, like you said, you're getting ready to graduate from college pretty soon. I have to imagine that you've taken plenty of courses where you have to give speeches. And I have to imagine that your classmates roll their eyes. It's like, oh, Genesis is here. It's like Wonder Woman stepping to the stage. Like, do we need her to speak? You know what I mean? Like, just give her the A and let's just move this thing along. And let's bring little Timmy from the back who's terrified of speaking. Let's bring him to the front. Let him get his turn out of the way because Genesis is going to kill it anyways. Do you ever feel like that? Be honest, do your classmates kind of like, oh gosh, I don't want to follow her?
I do. I don't know, honestly.
They do. I'm going to say it for you. I've been in enough communications classes. They do. It's like, oh, this is silly. Just give her the A. Just give her the A. That's how I picture it.
But it's great. But it's great, Genesis, like for you to model just to your classmates of like, hey, look, if I can do it, you can do it, type way. Because I know that, I quote, I'm not taking it away from myself, but I public speak every day to teenagers, I guess. But when I was your age and younger, like I was terrified to talk in front, like I would have like, I didn't want to give a graduation speech. Like I could have, I was like, nope, not doing that. And then I don't know how I got into teaching to this day. I don't know, but I just remember doing like speech, your speech class. And when I was in junior college, just like so nervous and like just studying my notes to a T, just like, so like, I'm like, I don't want to do this. Like, cause I used to be super shy and like, I was an athlete, but I was just like a quiet athlete. So anyway, so when I would see people go up there and it's just like natural and I'm like, okay, maybe I should relax because they seem to be okay. Like it's kind of comforting to know that they're not nervous. What are you going to say, Josh?
No, we took that in such a different direction. I just like the idea of Genesis going in there and dunking on people. And you're like, she's going to inspire people. We just, yeah. We just went I was like looking at it competitively. So I'm going to smoke all of you clowns.
Oh, no,
watch this.
Like that.
All right. Well, your Deb's example was much nicer.
I try to be humble as I can. So I'm like, hey, if I can help someone out, because I used to be super shy. I couldn't even make eye contact, which people don't believe till today. But I couldn't even go to the grocery store and check something out when I was a kid. My mom would have to be like, go in, I'm waiting out here, because that's how anxious I was a kid. Even going in the grocery store and buying something by myself, I'd like get like a scared little chihuahua. Like I was so anxious. And so I try to like encourage the students around me, and I'm like open with them, and I'm like, I used to be really scared and care what people thought, but life is too short. And, just go up there and just try your best and breathe and slow down your words. And so I try to help them because I wish someone would have helped me when I was in that situation where I was like super nervous, especially like elementary school. I know you didn't have to do as many like public speaking type presentations back then. You go up and show your drawing. But I wish someone would be like, go up there and talk about your drawing with all that you have. You got it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I figured. You seem like too nice of a person. I was like, in my head, it was a fun thing to think. Just Genesis walking up there, like, watch this. Just drop the mic.
Yeah. Josh wants competition.
Yeah, that's why.
I'm like,
But
of course. And then here I am. I'm like, it's a learning opportunity. Everyone.
what's a teacher in you? I'm not a teacher. I'm married to one, but I'm not a teacher myself. Probably for a lot of good reasons. So,
Genesis, would you say, and this is just for anyone who's listening who is like thinking like, oh my God, I could never do that though. Like I'm so shy and nervous. Would you say that like even practice speaking in front of people, like that can help alleviate that too? Because I know for myself, even going through student teaching until now, student teaching, I remember like shaking from the inside. I'm in front of teenagers. I was still I started late teaching. I was like 26, 27, but I was still so nervous. But like at this point, I'm like, I don't care. I don't care who's in front of me. I'll talk to 500 kids. I don't care. I don't care if I mess up. I don't care if I stumble over my words. It's just not a big deal to me anymore. So I know for me that's the case. Would you say that for yourself as well, with just practice and getting up there helps?
Oh yeah, practice for sure. I think a key thing that Kevin Bracey left with me was Toastmasters. My mom used to do it, which was funny. So I was like, Kevin, my mom always tells me about Toastmasters, but I don't know if it works. And he was like, Genesis, I did it. If it worked for me, I can guarantee it can work for you if you're on that same passion and walk of life and wanting to speak to students. So I believed Kevin, of course, the great of the great. And I said, I'm going to try Toastmasters. So I did. And wow, it worked wonders because you stand in front of a group of people and they judge you in a good way. They give you constructive criticism, but they count your filler words. They count everything, like the little pauses you do, all the notorious details. They tell you if your pitch was good enough, your posture. I mean, goodness, they will tell you everything in a list. And I think just standing in front of a group of adults, because I went back to my old group of Toastmasters, they're all in their like 40s and up. So older than me. And I started Toastmasters when I was 18. And so I have a group of adults that are 40 and above judging me. I mean, that definitely shaped me up. And I tell students that today. I mean, it was scary. I would shake a little and I would get sweaty. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm about to go in that group of adults. And they're all older than me. They're twice my age. They have kids. They're married. And they're going to tell me what I did wrong in my speech. I mean, they're going to tell me what I did great. But when they tell you what you did wrong, it is pretty scary to take that constructive criticism from adults twice your age. And I will say that shaped me up and made me fearless in speaking, because I tell students, you know what, I stand here. I know people are going to judge me. I know a lot of you are going to judge me. I don't know if it's good. I don't know if it's bad. All I hope is that you have good takeaways from what I'm telling you about right now, and that you're focused on the speech more than me, because that's where I want the focus end of the day. So yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
That's awesome.
Toastmasters. That sounds like a narcissist's worst nightmare.
Yeah.
So you are clearly not a narcissist. Clearly, complete opposite. No, that's great that you were able to like just even do that. Like that could be sick. That's terrifying.
It is terrifying at the beginning, I would say, but then it builds thick skin. You get used to it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, we want to. What's that?
I said that's good forced practice.
Oh yeah, baptism by fire, right? That's yeah. Well, hey Genesis, we want to make sure we're respectful of your time. I think we just have a couple more questions for you. We haven't done this for a while, but I think it would be. I'm interested in hearing what Genesis would say or suggest. We used to do this thing, and I think we'll maybe start doing it again, called the connection suggestion. So we'd like to ask our guests if you could recommend a.
I got away from that.
Yeah, quite a few episodes ago. This is like episode 127. We haven't done that for a very long time, but we're bringing it back because I think Genesis has some good recommendations. So if you had to recommend a person, a brand, an organization, other than Kevin, because Kevin, I love Kevin. We gave Kevin a lot of shout outs today, but besides Kevin, who would be someone that our audience could go, follow on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all of those places? They could check out their work, or like I said, an organization or a brand that you really respect. if you could suggest one thing for our audience to get connected with, what would that be?
I would say, I mean, oh, this is hard because there's
Mhm.
so many different connections. Um, and I wish I could just give them all, but this would take like an hour. So
Yeah,
I'm just gonna say the first one I think of. I'm not saying like I'm comparing them to other connections. It's just the first one I thought of.
sure.
So I would say Enrique Gonzalez. I actually recently got connected to him. He's actually doing leadership mentorship for me right now, and I'm doing coaching with him. He's incredible. LinkedIn, Instagram, Triand Leadership Solutions is his company. He does leadership coaching for professionals, and he's just amazing. All things leadership. He got like top 200 voices on LinkedIn. I mean, the guy's just incredible, very humble, willing to help you. I mean, I just sent him a message via LinkedIn and I was like, hey, I love what you do in leadership. And you are like way far above me in what you do with leadership development. Can you just have a chat with me? Let me know what you do. And this is a technique I've told kids to do for years. Just message them, be straightforward, be polite, and just see if you could, get takeaways from them. And that's what he's been doing. And I'm going to start doing like actual one-on-one coaching with him. I mean, he's a great guy, great personality, and he truly is one of the leaders I can think of. There are many others, but one of the leaders that I think are beneficial to reach out to.
Okay.
Awesome.
Perfect. That was awesome.
I was gonna say, just do the top 20. Go.
Yeah,
Top 20.
just speed round.
Let's keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for taking the time to come on here and talk with us. This has been so fun. Yeah. We can't believe you're 22. You're super mature and very very well spoken, and you're doing a great job. So obviously this is your path, I think. And you just, I mean, we don't need to tell you that, but you just keep doing you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for both of your time. Appreciate it a lot.
Yeah, no, we appreciate you. And I second everything that Deb just said. It's just awesome that there's someone as young as yourself that's as passionate as you are to reach out to young people. And I think just the impact that you'll have on everybody is gonna be pretty incredible. So, and it's just the beginning. That's the wild part. It's just the beginning of what you're doing. So we have no doubt that bigger and better things are ahead. So just, if you remember us when you like blow up, and you're like Tony Robbins or something one day, just don't forget that you did do the Connectable podcast when you were just starting. All right. We appreciate that. Well, we would be silly not to mention, or have you mentioned, where can people follow you? Website, socials, all that stuff.
So website is in my Instagram and my LinkedIn. So you can follow me at Instagram at Genesis Motivates _. LinkedIn is Genesis Vaquero. And Vaquero is spelled VAQUERO. And then you'll see a bright pink icon. I mean, it should stand out, hopefully, if I did my branding right. So LinkedIn, Instagram are the two platforms I use on a day-to-day basis. If you want to contact me, reach out. If I could help you in some way, if you're on a similar path, please reach out without hesitation. We'll love to hop on a call and see what I can give you, what tools and resources out of my time for free to help you out.
Nice.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, Genesis, again, thank you so much. We appreciate you, and good luck with everything in the future.
I appreciate it. Thank you both.
Don't log off when we close out. Don't log off. Stay on.
Thank you, Deb. Yeah, that happens all the time.
Don't log off.
A little behind the scenes for everybody. Yeah, but there's times where it's like we close it. It's like, no, don't leave, and we don't speak to them. So, yes, that's good.
Awesome.
All right. We will see you guys next week. See ya. Thanks for watching the show. If you enjoyed that episode, make sure you like it, share it, and hit the subscribe button to get a new episode every week. We'll see you next time on the Connectable podcast.